it is now recording. So we'll be able to share this after the fact. So if there's someone from your library who couldn't attend today and you want to share it with the rest of your staff, you'll be able to do so. So sorry for that interruption. So back to our guide. So we have, these are the items that have been created by OLIS, the task force, and OSL. We have a few additional resources here, a few quick links to other state departments and guidance that might be useful for you, as well as links to the state's reopening plan and information for that. Which leads me to, as I mentioned, just a quick update that I wanted to make sure everybody has before we start going. It shouldn't affect curbside pickup too much, but the state has also issued, just yesterday afternoon, issued guidance for businesses for reopening during phase 1. So that is located at reopeningri.com. We'll make sure to have a link directly to this. So there are some general highlights. There's business guidelines, so and then an actual plan template. And so when your building is opening to the public, libraries, although we're not businesses, will be required, I believe, to do this plan, which is different than what OLIS had come up with. So we just want to make you aware that this is here. It shouldn't affect your ability to do curbside pickup, because curbside pickup means your building's not open to the public yet. And so this should have nothing to do with that, but this is just very detailed guidance and to make sure that you have everything ready in order to be able to reopen your library when the time comes. In the meantime, as you're doing curbside pickup, this should not affect that. So if you're planning to say start curbside pickup next week or the week after, you shouldn't need to be filling out any plans, but it is still good to know that that's coming and to take a look at that. So that's all I wanted to say. I will stop talking now because you didn't come here to hear from me. So we have, I believe I saw all 6 of them here, 6 libraries that have been generously willing to share their experiences with doing curbside pickup over the past different amounts of time, depending on the library. So I think what we will do is start with the person who I see at the top of the list, which is Becky Borragini from the Lincoln Public Library. So I will let Becky unmute herself. All of our panelists are just going to share how they have been doing their curbside pickup, how the community has reacted to it, how the staff have reacted to it, and just kind of a broad picture of how it's gone and again, how they're doing it. So go ahead, Becky.
Morning. Lincoln Library has been doing the curbside pickup since March 23rd. We feel that it's going very well. The staff has been wonderful. We only have 5 people in the building at a time. So the reference staff fields the phone calls, or the librarians will field the phone calls, and circulation assists us as well while they're doing many other projects. Now, we decided that we were only going to take phone calls because we wanted to speak to the individual and let them know what our procedures were. So we don't, if we get something by email, we'll respond, but we ask that they call us. One of the big things that we have is we have our little cheat sheet with exactly what what the policy, kind of the policy, and then our little procedure. So when a patron calls in, we verify that they were a Lincoln resident or Lincoln taxpayer, because we were the only ones doing this for up in our area, and we couldn't handle everybody. As well as our book drop has been open, so we've been getting a lot of items in as well. We limited them to 5 items. They could call back in a week. They could call back, we pretty much let them call back whenever to request more. Once we've collected the items, we give the patron a call back, let them know where, that we were able to find the items on shelf, and we bag them up. We'll clean them, we'll bag them up, and we'll leave them for them in the lobby. When we speak to them, we tell them that they can there's only one person in the lobby at a time, and we put their first name and their last initial on the outside of the bag, and we also ask them when they're coming in. We date the item actually for the next day, because if they don't show up with it by the next day, we pull it. we haven't had any problems with anybody taking anybody else's items, nor on, anybody being truly upset when they show up at the library that, other people are there. Because we're also holding our free book giveaway, which we put the items outside when it's nice weather, and otherwise they're in our lobby. And we also have a sheet that we use that we stick in with every, of course I had it up, but that we kind of tell them that I don't know if you can see this, but that it says these items may not have been sanitized. It's recommended that plastic surfaces are wiped with disinfectant before use. And that's pretty much our procedure.
Before we switch to another panelist, have you guys been getting, what kind of volume have you been getting?
Volume, our volume hasn't been as grand, but we had a Valley Breeze article yesterday, so it might increase. We're usually busier in the morning than we are in the afternoon. In the afternoons.
And are you doing it all day, like normal hours, or?
We are doing it 9:30 to 5 Monday through Friday, and Saturday 9 to 1, because we wanted to make sure we had some Saturday hours, because as you know, some of us are still working during the week. So that's what we've been doing.
Great. So I'm not sure if we should save questions till the end. We have we'll do questions for each panelist, unless it seems like it's going to take us too long. Megan asks, do you ask for the items to be returned before giving them new items?
No, we actually have part of our thing that we tell them is we ask them to hold the books. We're getting a lot of returns because there's a lot of libraries that are saying they're not taking returns, whether they are or they aren't. Their websites are saying to people to hold on to the books. And because we're there, people are just dropping books into our book drop. I know there's some libraries that are local that have the mailbox in the middle of the parking lot, and they don't want to drop the books there because they don't know the safety of it. So we've been getting the books, taking them, and actually putting them in our meeting room in quarantine for a couple days, and then checking them in. And we wipe each one of them off.
Great. And then somebody also has asked, and I think you said this, but just to confirm, do you have card holders who are not Lincoln residents, and can they participate?
We're considering that in the future, waiting to see how this Valley Breeze article, whether we get a lot more Lincoln residents or not. But right now it has been Lincoln residents or Lincoln taxpayers.
All right, so thank you, Becky. And we will have a Q&A period at the end for everybody as well. So if you think you have a question that you want to ask of everybody, you can also hold it, but we'll do a few questions after each. It seems like we can manage our time and do that. So I'm going to just continue with the next face that I see, which is John from East Providence Library. So if John, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself. East Providence has also been doing this, I think, for quite some time, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi everybody. We first started the Governor's Reading Challenge and just restricted it to children's books. So we did that like a couple weeks in April, and we just decided with that kind of ending at the end of April, we just extended it to adults. But we did it kind of opposite. We did it with the online form, so they have to fill out an online form to fill out a request. And then we kind of extended to phone calls too. So at the beginning, it was very busy at the beginning, especially with the online form. Now I'd say it's probably 50-50 calls and people filling out the form. Similar to what Lincoln did, we grab the books, put them on a table in our lobby, and we'll call the patron and arrange a pickup time. We did like a spreadsheet with 15-minute increments of pickups. So someone will be scheduled for 9, next patron 9:15, 9:30, et cetera, throughout the day. We have 2 branches though. We have the main branch at Weaver, which we're doing pickup 4 days a week. And then we have our Riverside branch, which we're just doing it 2 days a week, Monday and Tuesday. we have our staff broken up to teams. So team that's at Riverside is only working, we're all only working 2 days a week right now in the building and 2 days remote. And Fridays, everyone's remote. Let's see. So it's been busy. It's been well received. We didn't restrict it because we have a lot of cardholders from Providence, east side of Providence. So we didn't really restrict it to anyone. You know, we specify in the form that it has to be items that are in and on the shelf and available for them to request. And there's been a few who are requesting books that are checked out or things that are on hold of the long waiting list. So usually I'll reply and say, sorry, this book, you know, is out or there's a waiting list. So would you like to choose something else?
How many of your your whole staff working on this, or is it just a small team? Since it sounds like you do have a lot.
We have like 2 teams of about 6 people. So yeah, we have small staff right now.
All right. Are there any other questions for John? I feel like you went through.
Oh, someone asked, do we put one person's items out at a time? Do we just put one person's items out?
Mm-hmm.
We do, yes, that's what we do. We just put one, like 9 o'clock person has, 15 minutes to pick up their item. If they don't, then we take that set of items in and put out the next set. Sometimes, it hasn't happened too often where someone's missed their appointment, but a few. So we try to squeeze them in. But we have found our appointments have booked up. So if someone may request something on, on a Monday, they might not be able to pick it up until Wednesday with the scheduling of the appointments. Sometimes there's a day or 2 delay because we have had so many. And no, we haven't been bagging items. We did start bagging the kids' items at the beginning, but with the adult items, we just kind of put their name and phone number and put an elastic band around the items. And since it's just that one person at a time picking up, it's worked out.
Okay, and then Adrian asked, when you said 2 teams, is that between the 2 buildings? So or are people working in both buildings? How's that?
Between the 2 buildings.
Okay.
Really, well, actually, one team's working half at Riverside and half at Weaver, and the other team's working just at Weaver. And we're thinking about extending to maybe Fridays at Riverside, since there's a big gap with having 2 days at the beginning of the week and then nothing until the following week. This, kind of backs up. So we may extend it to Fridays at Riverside too.
Right. So Fran from Auburn asks, what are your hours and days, John?
So we do pretty much 9 to 5 on the days we're open. So 9 to 5 at the branch on Mondays and Tuesdays, and 9 to 5 Mondays through Thursdays at Weaver. But we're closed Fridays.
Got it.
The Saturday is probably a good idea too, because there are people who work and can't make it in during the week. But
Yeah.
how many items? We kind of limit to 3, but we're not really holding that. That's a hard limit. I mean, if someone wants 4 or 5, we'd say okay.
Are you taking returns right now?
Book drop's open, so
Book drop is open.
it's been open.
Great. Okay. Thank you, John.
Sure.
So our next person to talk about their procedures, we have Catherine Chansky from Foster, the Libraries of Foster. And again, I'm just going down to the next one that I see. Thanks, Catherine.
Hi, everyone. We started doing Curbside at the Foster Public Library and the Tyler Free Library around the time that the governor announced the reading challenge. We gave out donated books through we left a flyer with the Department of Human Services where they were giving free lunches. And got a couple of families who saw the flyer and later came by to pick up some donated books. We didn't want them to be returned. They were just one way. And then shortly after that, we had a Zoom meeting with the staff and set up procedures for Curbside, which involved telling people they would work alone in a locked building. We'd be disinfecting surfaces so that when one staff person left, the other person came in, there'd be a clean library for them to work in. And I only had one volunteer who wanted to do it. It was a volunteer basis. So that was enough. Between myself and this one volunteer, we could do curbside by appointment Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at one location, and Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at another location. The idea being that in those only afternoons, if people emailed or called, we'd make ourselves available to get the books outside the library. We called it curbside, but what's been happening is we leave the books on a table or chair outside the building at an appointed time, and people come by, wave to us, and pick up their stuff that's already been checked out to them. So we only do that when we know they're coming. So we did these procedures that seemed to be working fine with the staff. I also reviewed them with the Board of Trustees because they had basically ordered the closings. I sort of felt I needed to do this slight opening with their approval, and they were okay with it. In our procedures, I set up a spreadsheet where I keep track of every curbside, who's getting books, when they come, how they contact us, mostly by email, sometimes by phone. I did a whole Google Forms on a MailChimp newsletter, and nobody really used it. They really just sort of knew our email, they knew our phone, and they found us that way. I also set up a sheet in our Dropbox file, a shared document, where the other staff person and I could list hold requests, because we're still limited to our collections in the two buildings, and anything new that comes in, and the new items that have been coming in were very popular. And I just want to say that the surprises were that people were so eager and appreciative, and we were glad to help out in that way, to have, glad to have a new book to read, and also for a little bit of normalcy, going to the library and getting a book. And also it was a surprise how great it was to talk with people about reading suggestions, about suggesting books. If we didn't have it, I'd suggest things we had in our shelves and our DVDs. And it was really fun to move stuff out into the community from our own stacks. One word of caution, this may be unique to Foster, but some of the older patrons who do love their libraries are so incautious. They do not wear masks. They try to barge right in. They're really kind of wonderful, but they take too much risk. And so it falls on us to be safe, wear the masks and gloves and keep them outside, basically. One more thing, I guess. I think we're only doing about 25% of what we would normally do in a week, which is actually kind of good. It's actually kind of a nice number, but it's small. And we saw a big interest in the first couple of weeks, in part because we've had holds from back in March sitting on the shelves. We called people, and I just warn you, that creates a lot more business if you call and try to get your holds off the shelf that you've been sitting there since when we closed in March, which is good, but it's going to make more work. And people were glad to have their holds in the new books. So I hope I'm covering the basics, but we did preparation, and it helped us to prepare in advance. And we really couldn't have done it without the volunteer who came into work when needed, just for the appointments.
Catherine, I just have two quick things that I think people have asked our other folks already. Just have you been limiting how many items people can take?
We have not, but it's to my surprise, some people are saying, I'll just take one, I don't want to take too much. In other words, they're limiting themselves more than we are.
And then are you doing local only, or are you opening it up to?
We advertise it as local only, but I couldn't resist giving out to somebody who came from Cranston. I mean, why not? We weren't overwhelmed and we could do it. So basically we're open unofficially. We're not going to turn anyone away. So.
Great, thank you, Catherine. So are there any specific questions just for Catherine and Foster before we move to the next? And I think even though so far everyone's doing it slightly different, which is great. There's a lot of different ways you can take the orders and pass them out, which I think is great to hear, but also certain things that everyone's doing the same. So maybe we'll try to pull some of those similarities and differences and options into notes after this meeting is over. So next on my list, I have Gail from the Harmony and Gloucester libraries. Hi, Gail.
Good morning. Our story at Gloucester and Harmony, our stories are not that different from these provinces and so forth, but we did start a little bit later. We started 2 weeks after the governor put out the reading challenge for children. And what we did was we that between the two libraries, we have 3 pickup days, 2 evenings, 2 daytime. You call in, you put your order together. We asked you for if you had a cell phone. If they had a cell phone, when they arrived at the time they chose, they would call us. We would bring their items out, put them at the entrance of the parking lot, and they would come out and get it, and we'd wave and walk inside. So it was very contactless. We very careful of that. If they didn't have a cell phone, and some of our older population did not have a cell phone, we just asked for the make of their car or their license plate if they knew it, and we would just keep an eye on the window, at that time that they were supposed to arrive. We didn't have any problems with that. We have not received any email requests. We received all phone requests, and I think that's due to the fact that people want to talk a little bit. So we chit chat with them, and we make some recommendations too. Because a lot of them will just say, I like Patterson. Give me something by Patterson or something like Patterson, and we're able to prior to doing curbside pickup, we did the free pickup. We just put out a bunch of books like Becky did at Lincoln, and that went over fairly well. We went quite a lot of books in the beginning, but in inclement weather, it wasn't. We couldn't put them out. Not really thinking of anything.
Are you limiting the number?
I'm sorry?
I would say, are you limiting the number of items people can take?
That's 5, but I'll tell you, those little 32-page board books or children's books, if they wanted 10 of them, we gave 10 of them. But that's a different breed. So we know who big readers are. If they wanted 6, mysteries, we gave them 6. We were pretty flexible with that. Mind you, we have a very small collection. And one of the nice things about having this library, it was that if we didn't have it here, I could immediately say, it's in Harmony. Let's get everything to Harmony, so they only have to make one trip if you don't mind going there. So we would do that back and forth to the library.
That's great. Oh, sorry, Gail. Some people I think are having difficulty hearing. It was a little fuzzy, but I could understand. Does anyone have specific questions that they missed? And we can make sure that we get that information. I've been also taking notes, so
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know why that's happening.
It's okay. It's just like a little fuzzy. Yeah, so the limits on items, Amy, Gail, correct me if I'm wrong. You said that you're limiting it to 5, but you're still being pretty flexible about that. So some people might want more than 5, and because you have, it sounds like you have like good relationships with your patrons, who are big readers, and you said especially with children's books, being able to give more than that, because that's kind of a special
We can't log our books at Harmony, so in return, but Gloucester have locked our books up, and we're probably going to open that up soon. What we're doing at Harmony is we're just taking the books out, putting them in a corner someplace, don't touch them till such and such a day, 3 days later. So we quarantine them for a little while, and then we clean them up and check them in, go from there.
Great. So you said that the Gloucester, one of your book drops is closed, the other is open, and you're quarantining the books for 2 days before you actually check them in. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Gail. So the next person I see Donna from the Mount Pleasant, a branch of Providence Community Library, who coincidentally enough showed up right next to Cheryl, who's the director of the library, on the screen. So Donna, can go ahead and share what PCL has been doing? That would be great.
Can you all hear me?
Yep. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Donna from Providence Community Library, Mount Pleasant, and it's an honor to be here. I'd like to say our curbside is, going well. Cheryl put out a, call for volunteers, and we got enough volunteers to run 4 libraries: Mount Pleasant, Knight Memorial, of course, Rochambeau, and we even have a little branch, Washington Park, that are participating as well. We were given big, beautiful welcoming signs, welcoming people in both English and Spanish. There's a designated number, both in English and Spanish, that people call. We place the bag. People make appointments. They call in. They let us know what they want. In the beginning, it was a lot of adults, but now it's kind of gotten to children. So Mr. G, who is our wonderful children's librarian, he gets the children's books. Myself, or even some of the clerical staff, depending on what it is, we grab adult books. So we let the people give us their library card information. We give them, we tell them when to come. They make an appointment. And what I do is I'm the runner. I put the bag right outside. There's a designated X, and that's whether they're riding up or they're walking up. I think most of our people at Mount Pleasant anyway, they ride up. They are bagged. Their name is on it. There's a sign that clearly says, please do not return items until the library opens. And of course, we're not sure when it opens. So it's, it's pretty clear. We have, so far from our library, we have 193 items circulated at Rochambeau, 31 at Washington Park, which is our little tiny branch, 74 from Mount Pleasant, and about 50 from KMA. I can tell you all, on a given day, we usually average probably about 5 or 6 bags in a 4-hour period. We run from 10 to 2. So that's pretty busy. It's pretty busy for us. We also do prints. Now, I have not received a lot of them, but people, what they'll do is, if they call, I'll ask them to please email it to me, and then we print it out. They are for free. We do not take money. I'm surprised, actually, we haven't gotten more people who, want to print. I'm a little nervous talking on these. I'm not a nervous person, but it's kind of weird talking on something like this. So I just, give me a second to make sure I have not left anything out. We do have people, most people are very, very cautious. They stay in their car, and sometimes they'll wait until I go back in, which is really funny. Or we have the opposite. People want to talk. I think I'm Catherine. I think you spoke about the older people. We did have one gentleman who I think was a little confused, and he didn't have a mask on. He wanted to come in and read the paper. I felt really, really badly, but it is some of the older people who are actually the more adventurous. I'd say that most people have been respectful, and I have to say, I think I'm the luckiest one of the group, because I actually get to go outside, give the people their items, and I collect all the smiles and all the the accolades. They're really grateful, and they're thanking us. I almost feel like first responders in a way. So I don't think we have, usually I have 3 to 4 people, children's librarian, me as the adult services librarian, and we have 2 clerks. And I say everybody really works hard getting these things together. They're only books that can be, that we have in the building. We can refer them, if there's a book that we don't have, but say Knight Memorial, Roche, or Washington Park has, we can tell that patron that they can go to that library. And some of them, and some of them, do that. Trying to think.
There are a couple questions, Donna.
Okay.
Somebody
Sorry,
asked,
I'm talking so much.
Oh, no, it's great. Someone asked if you could just say a little bit more about how you're doing the printing. So people are emailing you their files.
Oh, okay. All right. What what I'll ask them to do is whatever they need to print, I'll ask them, can they send it to me? I give out my work email and I get it, and then I print it out for them. And then they're like really shocked, like, no money, no money. I'm like, no, it's good. We're good. But I have to say, it's only probably happened about 3 times. So it's either, we either haven't communicated enough, or people maybe just don't believe it because it's too good to be true. I'm not sure.
And then you just put it like in an envelope and put it outside.
Yes, yes, in an envelope. Mm-hmm.
Great. So someone has asked what you use for bags, but then it looks like Cheryl answered that in the chat. So PCL, it looks like you got your bags at Paper and Provision at West.
Yeah, they're real nice too.
Are they paper? They must be paper because you're
yes, yes,
have
yes.
to be paper. And there are a bunch of other recommendations. So if you check out the chat, if you are looking for bags. So Megan from Coventry mentioned that she ordered bags that say Curbside from Janway. And then I think there was another recommendation, Tapas or any restaurant supply store will have different sizes of bags. And so that is also a restaurant supply store that Cheryl mentioned for Providence. Donna, is PCL limiting the number of items or limiting to Providence only?
Well, no, I think it's open for anybody to come in. We do 3 to 5, but of course, somebody mentioned with children's, if they want more, Cheryl, I hope I'm not getting in trouble saying this, but we do give out, we give out more, we aim to please, we like those numbers. So no, like I said, it's 3 to 5, but if they need more, no problem.
And is it just people from Providence, or can anyone come?
I think anyone can come. Okay. Cheryl, correct? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Stacy, I will send out notes and the chat and also the video. We had to use a different Zoom account than the OLIS account, so it may take till next week till you get these, but I'll try to send them out on Monday. And then Susan from Pawtucket, you can contact me to get on the curbside list, or potentially, for now, me is good. It might end up being someone else, especially as we enter phase 1 and more people are offering it. It might be more of a given and less of a list, but for now, you can contact me. All right, are there any other questions for Providence Community Library? And when I do send out the notes and the video and the chat, I also have Cheryl has shared her sort of procedures that they wrote up, as did Catherine, and so I will see if any of our other panelists want to share their documents, and I'll make sure you can also just get those so you can actually read through what people have said. Yeah, so Jana, thank you, Jana. I saw your hand up, but I see that you typed. Do you have a limit to how many times people can use the request system?
No.
No, so people can just keep getting more, which is great. And so then let me count how many people that has been. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Cindy from East Smithfield is also here. And they have also been doing curbside. So if you would like to unmute yourself, Cindy, that would be great. Perfect.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, we started doing it on April 13th. We also had people volunteer, so we had 6 volunteers. Mostly the same people have been doing it on different days. We decided to only do it on Mondays to start out. We started with children's books, but then we offered the parents who called, do you want anything? And so we've been giving out some adults, but mostly it's only been children and their parents. We limited our books to 10, and we did it a different than anyone I've heard so far. We asked people to call the library just for an hour in the morning from 10:30 to 11:30. And so we took those calls, and so one person was taking the calls, and the other person then, when we had a list of books that they went, and a lot of people don't know what books, so they just say, I have a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, get whatever. And we had somebody go around then and get the books. We checked them out to the patron. We also didn't give a specific time. We thought at first we would, but then Bethany decided she didn't think we needed to. We're lucky we have that little vestibule. So we kind of said to people, come between 12:30 and 1 or 1 to 1:30. We told them to go up near our book drop, park. If there was another car before them, to stay in their car. But if they were the only one, to just one person get out of their car, come into the vestibule, and we've been putting them in paper bags with the person's name on them. And we haven't really had any problem. So, and yeah, like you say, sometimes we'll wave to the patron or whatever if we hear them out there. And we've also been giving out free seeds. And we also have one of those, our friends at the library actually have a little library outside the library. So those are the things we've been doing. And we haven't gotten, well, I thought we would get much more use. We've had maybe 5, 6, 7 families each time, but that might be because of our limited time. So we are probably going to start next week doing maybe different days to align with the OLIS deliveries, because we were planning to do it Monday, Thursday, but we see the delivery is going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we'll probably change to Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe do a morning and then an evening so that people can come at different times. Like some people were saying, if people worked.
Great, and that was a question in the chat. So Cindy asked, is anyone doing evening or Saturday hours? So yeah, and Becky answered in the chat. For anybody who came in late, Becky went first. So Becky in Lincoln is doing 9 to 1 on Saturdays. I think everybody else at present is doing limited hours during the day, or their full hours during the day, but it's still like 9 to 5. And then Cheryl put in the chat that PCL has lined the times up with the meal distribution times, so that with the goal of limiting the time that people are out of there.
That's what we did also. That was how we did it, yeah.
So that's, when you're choosing your time, that might be something to consider, how that's happening in your town. Foster is doing Saturdays by appointment, but there has not been much demand for that as of now. Amy Nielsen, forgive me, I don't know what library you are from, Amy, is thinking 2 to 6 or 10 to 2 on Saturdays. So certainly something to consider, especially if you are trying to reach people, the biggest part of your, Exeter, I knew that. You know what, I did know that, Amy. Sorry. If you're trying to reach as many people in your population as you can. So Harmony does Tuesday late afternoon and evening, and Wednesday during the day. So trying to stagger your hours and come up with different times probably is a wise decision if you're trying to get, as many people to be able to take advantage of the service as possible. So while we still have everyone here, are there any other questions that you have, either for a specific panelist or for everyone, before we move along?
Nicole?
Oh yeah, Nicolette.
Nicole, Nicolette, I'm sorry. Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I mentioned, we also sign up all the staff. We have a contact tracing sheet. So we do like an attendance. So everybody who's in the building, we have to enter their name in. So that's very, very important. So if anything were to happen, everybody knows who was there.
Thank you. And you guys have also in PCL, obviously you have very big, generally big buildings, but I understand you've been sort of isolating people to their own workstation, their own phone. Is that correct?
Right. Everybody uses as a designated phone. The person who uses that phone uses it the whole shift. And then we do have maintenance guys, cleaners that come in after us and clean, and before us that clean. So it's important to have that contact tracing.
Great. Is there anybody else who's doing curbside want to speak about how they're assigning workstations or making sure that like phones or computers are not being shared? And you can just feel free if you're doing curbside to unmute yourself and jump in.
I think I'm unmuted, so
yeah,
let me just throw in, we are trying to have, we can't really do workstations for individuals because I'm looking down the road a little bit. Right now, there's just 2 people working, so it's easy to keep stations separate. But eventually, all of the part-time staff who work with me share computers. So I think we're going to, everyone has their own keyboard in the future and their own mouse. And probably it's a good idea. Just listening to the talk about phones, we'll probably have one person who answers the phone for their shift, and we wipe it down to the next person.
Okay, any other thoughts on that? And that's something I think that I'll develop as people begin having more and more people working in the building. Joanne from Pontiac asks, are you surveying staff for medical issues when reporting to work? Such as asking staff if they're running a fever, a screening before folks come into the building. So Cheryl says, at PCL, we are not surveying, but have asked staff who are feeling ill or who have a sick family member to not report to the library. She says, I understand from our HR manager that we may need to have a wellness survey and temperature each day. We are waiting for more guidance on that. So from a state perspective, I don't believe there is a requirement for fever taking. The state does have a quick survey, like a checklist for people coming into the building. Stacy asks, what about for patrons? I don't know about that. Well, at this point, we'll table that. I will find out what the guidance is on that. For the time being, no patrons are coming into your building, except maybe possibly if you're putting your curbside in the lobby. So not something to worry about at this time. People are just grabbing their things and leaving. We will find out more about that before we get to any phase where people can actually get into the library. But you should certainly be checking with your staff and making sure that nobody sick is reporting to work. Let's go through, there's lots of things happening here in the chat. Speaking of computers, Amy in Exeter has bought keyboard covers that can be wiped and then giving out individual mice for folks to use. Keyboard covers are a good idea because they're a flat surface that you can completely wipe down, whereas keyboards have nooks and crannies. So if you are sharing, I think that's a good idea. Charlotte asks, is everyone wearing masks and gloves when looking for the books for patrons? If someone could.
We have been at East Smithfield, but now yesterday in the meeting, you guys said that probably the gloves are not necessary.
Correct. I think that there is the official guidance. I don't know if it's official guidance. I understand, as we understand it, sometimes when people wear gloves, it gives you a false sense of, like if you wear gloves but you don't do proper glove maintenance, it's as good as not wearing gloves. So if you don't change your gloves frequently or wash your hands, you use the same pair of gloves all day, say they're medical gloves, and they get dirty, and you touch something with your gloves and then you touch your face, it's the same as touching something with your bare hands and then touching your face. And so sometimes people are given sort of a false sense of security about gloves. So I don't believe gloves are a requirement. But if people feel safe using gloves, that's certainly a thing you can do and perhaps should do, especially I think one recommendation I've seen, I think it was from either from the CDC or the NEDCC, the Document Conservation Center out of New England, is when you're taking, say, books from the book drop, wear gloves, isolate them, immediately take those gloves off, wash your hands, and then don't touch those books again for 2 days. That's one way. Gloves are definitely helpful. In that situation, you're wearing the gloves for a very short time. You're using them to move something, but not necessarily while you're doing your work all day long, like typing on a computer.
Nicolette, could
Yeah.
I weigh in?
Absolutely.
We do ask the staff to wear gloves and masks, and it's almost sort of been in response to patrons' concerns. Some staff members have been kind of a little bit, reluctant or recalcitrant, but a lot of our patrons are saying, okay, because they can't retrieve the books themselves. So we're sort of responding to their concerns. Mm-hmm. So, it's almost a panacea, but it's when we do say yes, we retrieve them while wearing gloves and masks, and we wipe them down before placing them in bags. And I just, so that's how we've been handling it. And, you know, we have a lot of elderly patrons who are using this. We don't have a curbside service. We do have a vestibule like others. Actually, this is kind of how it works here. You'll see. A vestibule is really handy, and we just like kind of code the bags with their first 3 initials and the first 3 letters of their last name. So it's been working well. And I started it. We've been doing it a couple of weeks, well, about a month now. And I started doing it alone just to kind of keep kind of what we were talking about: 1 person, 1 keyboard, 1 computer, 1 telephone. And like so we have a mezzanine where the pickups are. So whoever's fielding the calls then uses these walkie-talkies to somebody up in the stacks to retrieve an item for like on demand things. We do have a form also, but and now Monday we've started scheduling more staff in. We've kind of kept it to 5 or 6 people, but we're moving forward with much more staff because our numbers are like doubling every week. So I think this week, as of right now, we've had 237 items this week. So because the governor's challenge kind of caught us very unaware, and we didn't respond really quickly to it. I mean, I think it was issued on the 29th or 30th, the 30th, I think, and we just didn't really have something in place. So we had a lot of ad hoc solutions. It is like everything that we've been doing. What we're doing today is really rather smooth and everything, and but it bears no resemblance to what we did even 3 weeks ago. I mean, it's just crazy how quickly everything's evolving. But we do have print on demand as well. And so we have that 1 table to see behind me. We now have like a U-shaped, 3 tables U-shaped with, you know, alphabetical, and then a 3rd table for print jobs that are starting to come in. So
great. Joe, Jana asks, are you scheduling the pickups or can people just come in?
No, you know, I think we're lucky in having this vestibule. I think after 2 months, we did start the schedule with pickups because I was bringing them out and basically throwing them into the passenger side of the people's cars from like 3 feet and usually sinking them. But there was also, we're not now, I just think that after 2 months, people have really internalized the distancing aspect. So I've seen like 2 people coming towards the door and somebody will say, no, you go first or whatever. And they stay far away from one another. And I think it's good practice for in the future because once we can let people back into the library, we're certainly not going to be on the floor policing people. So it just won't be practicable. So but I do think most people have internalized this.
Do you have, this is just a question, I'm trying to tell from your picture, do you have automatic doors or?
Those are automatic doors,
okay.
Right? So right behind this table where I would be standing, there's another door into the library and that's locked so that people cannot come in. Like I said, that was really minimal, but it's hugely popular right now. So.
And Joseph, was there something you had emailed me this morning?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I conflated 2 different emails, so I'm sorry about that. But you know, something else I wanted to bring up to you. But
okay, but that's not about curbside.
No, well, it kind of touched on staffing because there were people who were nervous about staffing, and you know, maybe I can just throw it out there if anybody else is having trouble staffing. I got a very long and comprehensive email from our labor lawyer regarding staffing, so he answered just about any question anybody would have about scheduling staff and what we can do and everything. So that does touch on this actually.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch more about that. Thanks, Joseph. All right. So we still have 8 minutes. If there are more questions, I feel like we have had quite a comprehensive overview of everybody's curbside experiences. But yeah, if there are more questions, you can either feel free to raise your hand if you would like to ask your question out loud, or you can type it in the chat. I'll give everyone a few seconds. Ellen from Warwick, I see your hand up. You want to, like your physical hand, go ahead.
Hi. I'm wondering about forms. I'm in children's. I'm wondering if the forms are general, just people request, do you leave it so they can request specific items, or are they using the catalog? How are the forms looking?
All right, anyone with an answer can just jump in.
Our forms are pretty general. They can type in a title in a box, basically.
Okay.
I just I put a link into the chat to our form if anybody wants to look it up. We do restrict them to 5 at a time per form, just so we can get an order placed more quickly, but we're not restricting how many forms people can submit. You know, so we are saying, okay, these are 5, they'll be ready. You're going to give us 20 items. You're going to, you know, it's going to take us a while. So I just put in the link to our form if anybody wanted to take a look at it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
At PCL, we didn't use a form because we knew we were going to probably have to go back and forth with people about what might be available or not. And we know the phone is kind of the lowest common denominator. Everybody pretty much has a phone or a way of calling us. And it was a way of making sure that the pickup was streamlined, you know, because we were managing, you know, that I know it's worked for other libraries, but we couldn't figure out how to make it work at our location. So we've just done phone.
And I have to say, it works pretty well. People call in, except when somebody's mother tries to call in for their child, and the child's 13, and they can kind of tell us what they need. But it, you know, it's pretty, you know, works pretty well. And the clerks take the information down. If it's children's, it's passed on to Mr. G.
Thank you.
All right, so there are a couple more questions. I'm going to go with the next question that would be for people who are already doing curbside. We have a question for people who have not started yet. So Adrian asks, are there any real challenges that have stood out to anyone who is currently doing this? If you have a challenge. It sounds like a lot of this went pretty smoothly, which is nice to hear.
If I may,
Mhm.
can you hear me okay?
Oh, yep, you sound pretty good. Yep.
Okay. The biggest challenge has been the rain. We've had to switch to plastic bags, which nobody really has anymore. But I did go to our local grocer, and he said he would give us as many as we wanted, but we couldn't touch any of his paper bags. So I went to the liquor store, and they gave me lots of paper bags. So we're set with that. But it's really just we have a vestibule, but it's you can't see inside of it very well. So walking in, you don't know if someone's there or not. So we've been bringing it out to the, you know, right out to the entrance to the parking lot. That's really it. And again, I think somebody asked, I saw that people want to know how do we promote this to our, you know, to our community. That's really been the challenge, because on one hand, you're going to go forth with something and you don't know if, you know, 10 days later, all the rules are going to change again, or something's going to happen. It's just been, we're, you know, flying by the seat of our pants sometimes. It seems to have leveled off. We've put it on all our Facebook accounts. We put it on our website, word of mouth, flyers we put into bags if it's going out with crafts to go. We do crafts to go for the children. Any way we can, that's a big challenge, getting it out to the community. And I hope that once we all get on board in phase 1 and we all start, I hope that either OLIS or OSL or a group of librarians, directors get together and ask the Providence Journal to really push something out there for us. So we're all sort of offering the same thing, but at certain hours and times. You know, check with your local library. That would be a big help.
Thank you,
Thank
Gail.
you.
Catherine has her hand up. We'll have Catherine go and then Cheryl.
Just a quick idea that the interest in the new books is pretty intense for our library users. So I've been keeping my list of hold requests. And as soon as I can get into Sierra, as soon as they're active in Sierra, I want to input those requests for people, or actually have them do it themselves. So I think that the moment they turn on in Sierra, holds requests is going to be an important moment to be aware of, because there's going to be a big rush to start putting holds in, I think.
And thank you, Catherine. And I know that OSL will definitely and absolutely give people advanced warning on that, so that you'll know when that's coming. It won't just one day be a surprise. You'll come in and you'll have a million holds because they've been turned back on. So definitely watch for that guidance. That will come out. Cheryl, did you have something you had wanted to share? And then Donna. Oh, Cheryl, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
So the one challenge, I think, when we asked, we had a little conversation among the 4 libraries at our Night Memorial location. Gail, who's been managing the outdoor piece, has, she sits outside. And she said the only challenge is that the message about what's going on in the world has not made it necessarily all the way out into the community. And so she's had people come up to what somebody else said, not wearing a mask or saying I'm not sick or confused. And so she's got a great personality and way of just saying, well, I'm wearing a mask, I'm protecting you, and people will usually comply. Or she's had to say, please step back and just be, firm about what the expectations are. So she's really led the way on us thinking about, even with curbside or when we expand outside, having kind of a welcome table that has masks and hand sanitizer. And this is going a little bit beyond curbside, but just thinking ahead that there are some people who have not really, they don't completely understand everything that's going on, or they've had extreme distress, hunger, and issues like that. So I just wanted to put that out there, just to be aware and to be very proactive with people. And she's been extremely friendly and, chatted with them and dealt with it in a very warm way. But that has been something that she's faced a little bit.
Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. That's good to keep in mind. Donna, did you have something you were going to add as well?
Oh yeah, just really quickly. Of course, I agree with Cheryl said about, you have to be firm and proactive. And generally, I've only seen that, like I said, with a couple of the elderly or older patrons. And it's the same thing, well, you don't have your mask on today, or, you got to stand back. I'll sometimes say, not just the older people, I'll sometimes just say, because people are friendly, they want to come up. I'll just say, we're trying to abide by this, city and library rules. We don't want to get in trouble. We want to be here. So that seems to help. And Gail, I just wanted to say about the rain. So far, that hasn't been a problem. Generally, when I put the bag out, the people are right there. So if it's going to get wet, it's like 2 seconds. So yeah, I've never just put the bag out and the person isn't there, or the car, they haven't gotten out of the car. So it hasn't been so much of a problem. Thank you.
And so in the chat, there's lots of ideas about how to advertise. So people have been mentioning social media. Somebody asked about a city phone blast. I don't know if anyone has done that, but if you haven't, that sounds like it would probably, if you have the ability to do that, would be a very effective thing. Local radio is, according to Joe, helpful and welcoming to giving up airtime to talk about libraries if you have a local radio. And then Cindy has worked with her local, the Patch and Valley Breeze on the school and town website. So lots of options for sharing. I don't want to go too much longer, but I do just want to do the one last question, which was from, from Amy in Exeter, which is, if you aren't already doing this, is anyone starting right away? So that the governor said yesterday, today is the last day they're lifting the stay-at-home order, and so we're technically moving into phase 1 as of, I guess, tomorrow, but I feel like Monday is really the day when it starts. So there's no expectation that just because we are moving into phase 1 on Monday that everybody starts doing this on Monday, of course. It's definitely worth taking the time to make a plan and to figure out how this is going to work for your library. So there is no rush on this. If you're not ready to do this next week or even the week after, don't do it next week or the week after. But if anybody is planning to start this week, Gail, you have your hand up. I know you're all right. Go ahead. If you wanted to, oh, you're muted though. Yep.
I just needed a clarification on writing the plan. We don't need a plan going into phase 1, is that correct?
I don't believe so. So as I understand it, the official plan that I mentioned at the beginning, and so for anyone who came in late, the state did issue guidance just yesterday afternoon, just about an hour after we were done talking about our guidelines for libraries. The state issued some new guidance for businesses, and I believe there will also be specific guidance for libraries, but No, if your building is not open to the public at present, you should not need
Okay.
to do anything official for the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To our library director, just watch your communications from Karen. And everyone join us on Monday at the OSL OLIS joint announcement fest that happens every Monday at 11. They've expanded the size, so we've been maxing out our 100-person limit. So we are borrowing Providence Public Library Zoom to be able to have, I think, up to 300 people or 250. So we should everyone can come to that now. Let's see, so can we please review the update since yesterday's Zoom meeting, what has changed? So yes, if you did come in late, I will reshare my screen. Feel free, I know that it is past 11, so if you have other places to go, please don't feel bad about popping out of this meeting. So this was sorry, I had clicked on Joseph's link that he shared, the Newport form, which is lovely, but we're gonna come back here. So since our meeting yesterday, there are these business guidelines that have gone up on the Reopening RI website. So I will put those in the chat for you. Colin says that the meeting on Monday is at noon, not 11. Is that just for this company? I feel like it's usually at 11, but maybe the next one is at noon. Sorry, Colin. And sorry, everyone. Just check the OLIS CE calendar and you will see what the actual right time is. So these business guidelines went up sometime yesterday. They might have gone up in the morning, but we missed them because we hadn't already prepared for the afternoon. So there are some highlights and explanations, general business guidelines, and then there is this COVID-19 control plan. I don't know enough about it to speak with any authority about what this will mean for libraries, but as I understand it, when you open it up, it just goes through, it's a lot of the same things. Nothing in it conflicts with what we've said, I don't believe, but it's just making sure that employees have face masks, making sure that you have a plan for social distancing, making sure that you have a plan in place for if somebody in your staff tests positive or there's an outbreak at your place of work, etc. So communication. So there's just a whole bunch of about cleaning and just making sure that you have a plan in place before you reopen. I don't know. So it says here, this plan does not need to be submitted to a state agency for approval, but should be retained on the premises of the business and must be made available to the Department of Health in the event of an inspection or outbreak. So to cover yourself before you, again, open for business. So I don't believe that this needs to be in place before you're done. Many of you are already doing curbside pickup, so you don't have this in place. And we know that that is allowable. Thank you, Colin. But apparently this coming Monday, it could be because we're using a different Zoom account, we had to move the time. So noon. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Catherine, for sharing. She's already gone. But so noon on Monday. Yes, and so Steph says, thanks to the panelists. Thank you to everyone who is willing to share. Thank you to everyone who is willing to stay past 11. I'm going to stop the recording. And if you are registered, I will send this out and we will put all of this information on our guide, which once again is in the chat, but it is olis.ri.gov/COVID-19. We'll bring you right there. So we'll put the video from this, we'll put any resources. I'll put my notes and some, thank you, John. John has shared his email address if you would like to get in touch. Same thing, Joe has put his phone number. So just, scroll through the chat if you want to get in touch with any of those folks. And thank you so much. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.